Hey everyone, welcome back to the Atlanta Startup Podcast. My name is William Leonard. I am your co-host and investor here at Valor Ventures, a leading seed stage venture capital firm here in Atlanta, Georgia. And today I am thrilled to have Shila Burney, founder and managing partner of Zane Venture Fund, on the podcast with me. Shila, thank you for joining in.
Hey, Leonard, thanks for having me. I'm excited about the conversation.
Likewise. I know you are very familiar, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with you, but would love for you to just introduce who you are, your background, and your segue into venture capital.
Sure. So I've spent about 20 plus years investing in human capital through programs and services for large institutions and nonprofits, and pivoted to full-time entrepreneurship in 2018. Started a company, was really excited about it. And then an entrepreneur asked me to help him source investors. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me see what this is. I didn't spend any time in finance or investment banking or anything like that. So this was a new space for me. And so it was because of an entrepreneur and seeing firsthand how hard it was to access capital, access the networks and the resources to be able to scale. And after doing that for 7 months and getting him to a $5 million letter of intent, I decided like this problem is so much bigger than it's just one entrepreneur, because I had met several entrepreneurs along the way and decided, you know what, let me just spend a year learning about venture capital first and then getting myself sort of plugged into the ecosystem. So started out having events first, founder forums, just really bringing resources to the entrepreneurs. And then I said, okay, so I've met enough entrepreneurs to know that there's no pipeline issue. There are tons of entrepreneurs, and that I would launch a fund. So I did that in late 2019. And fast forward, we have a fully functioning fund. We've had a couple of closes. We've made 5 investments. And so, so that was pretty much my entree, just an entrepreneur and wanting to help him out. And saw that the big problem was so much larger.
Yeah, you're right. The problem is large, and it's not a pipeline problem like many say it is. And so you said you started the fund back in 2019. You've had a few closes, 5 investments. Congrats. And so what is the thesis of Zane? What types of companies, founders are you all investing in?
So we are investing in bold entrepreneurs who are building innovative business models. And for us, that means diverse entrepreneurs who are primarily here in the Southeast. We'll look opportunistic across the US. We've gone back and forth about sectors and, should we focus on certain sectors, mainly because of the region. We're known for SaaS, right? But outside of that, what are the kind of opportunities here? So we've gone back and forth and just settled on, we're going to be sector agnostic. We see incredible deals coming our way and we don't want to limit ourselves. And so no particular sectors, we just ask that, we're looking for diverse founders and teams, innovative business model, and, primarily in the Southeast. That's basically what our thesis is.
Got it. And do they have to be a revenue generating company when you all find them, or?
No, not really, because we know we're looking at some early stages. And so we're saying exchanging some type of exchange with the customer, right? Whether it's data or dollars. And so if you're working and you have some, if it's in beta, but you have some customers, you've been serving those customers, you got customer feedback, and there's some market validation of that, then we want to take a look at you. We understand some of these companies won't have revenue or significant revenue for a while, hence early stage, right? And so revenue is not one of the indicators that we look for when we're investing in companies.
Got it. That's interesting. And you mentioned, the internal discussion that you all had about being sector agnostic versus being maybe a specialist fund and looking at a few verticals. How do you all think about that? How did you all come to that decision? And is that something you may explore, being a more focused fund when it comes to sector and other future funds?
Sure. So I'll tell you the sectors that we did decide on. We have the experience for. We had cybersecurity as one of our sectors, and we were really excited about that. But limited partners didn't take us serious. They thought we wouldn't be able to get into any cybersecurity deals, and we've had a few cybersecurity deals come our way. And then the other thing, when we said we would focus on, I'll give you the sectors that we thought about played extremely well here in the Southeast: ed tech, fintech, digital health, digital media, now the creator economy, What was the other? There was another one I can't remember right now. We had cyber, supply chain logistics, which is huge right now. And we got feedback that we were being too limiting in some of our sectors. And so we decided, okay, so the idea must be to go broad, right? And then see what we can find. And so what we're thinking now is fund two. We will definitely have gotten some, companies on our belt and feel really comfortable about certain industries. And probably we'll have more of a targeted focus on fund two. But right now, because of our team, I'm still a solo GP. I'm looking at great deals. The founder is the attraction for this fund. Can we get great founders who can create great business models or who already have created great business models?
Yeah.
That's how we sort of landed on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's always a debate between investors as to whether you should be a generalist or a more sector focused fund, but that's interesting. And so you are a solo GP at Zane Venture Fund, is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's not too common, especially here in the Southeast. So curious as to one, why be a solo GP, and then two, would love to hear a little bit about your experience thus far, because I'm sure we have some listeners who are maybe founders or entrepreneurs or anyone in the ecosystem who is thinking about raising a fund and may want to be a solo GP. What are the pros and cons as well?
Sure. So do you know one solo GP? Lisa was a solo GP when she originally started out, and of course, Fund Two. There were some changes, and so folks could start out as a solo GP, and of course, as you build more funds, you would want more people on board. So for me, I didn't set out to be a solo GP. Like I would have loved to have had a partner who was committed to this just as I was, who had the sort of the thing is that money is required to raise a fund. Not everybody has the liquidity to be able to set up a fund. And so I've decided, like I've tried, not a co-GP, but I've tried to see how can I bring people in at the same level and they will have the same level of enthusiasm and dedication and all of that to the fund. And that's incredibly hard when this isn't your vision. This is my vision. And I'm putting forth the fund that I say I think, we should do here in the Southeast. And so getting people to buy into your vision and then be able to, double down on it just as hard as you, that's incredibly hard. People who start funds together have usually worked in certain something together before. And so they have that sort of working ability, working knowledge of each other. And so the disadvantage of it is that you have to do all this by yourself. Like there is no savior coming to help me look at these deals or, reach out to LPs. That's on me. So I part of the advantage of that is that, first of all, I've always been what is called an independent contributor. And I've leaned in that through all of my career. I was never a team of 10. It was usually just a team of one, me and me. And so I know how to work. I know what I need to get done, how fast I need it to get done. And so the advantage of being a solo GP is how quickly you can move. There are no layers. There are no bureaucracy. There are no approvals except for my relationship with Sig. Sig and I talk about everything. And I lean on his experience as a 30 plus year investor, successful investor. And so I think for those who are considering it, research. When I thought about a solo GP, I looked up Charles Hudson, and I still admire Charles to this day. And I've talked to Charles a few times about why the solo GP role, why hasn't he gotten a partner? And the things is that he feels like he's capable enough of managing this by himself. He has talent on his team, right? He has analysts and other partners or principals and that sort of thing. So it's not just him, but in terms of the primary decision maker, it's him. And so for this fund, I'm leaning into that sort of role. I know it's all on me. And that way I don't bring someone in with the expectations that we're not going to get paid for about 5 years, y'all. I don't want you to think because you see 25 million that's what's in the bank. We don't have that yet. We got to fundraise to that. And so not everyone who's wanting to become an emerging manager understands that. So I say research what it takes to build a fund. If you can't do it by yourself, but you have a partner who has the same sort of ideals that you have, partner with them. Solo GP is not the best way to go. I think people should find out what works best for them.
Yeah, I think that's right. Finding what works best for you, and that's been a model that's worked for Charles and team for some time. So it makes sense as to why you would stick with it, right?
Yeah.
And In that anecdote you mentioned, Sig Mosley. For some of our listeners who aren't familiar with Sig, would love for you to kind of give a brief synopsis on who Sig is in a relationship with Zane as well.
So Sig has been coined the godfather of angel investing here in the Southeast, right? Which means he spent an incredible amount of years building up that reputation of credibility around investing in great companies and then having significant returns. Right now, Sig is still the record holder of acquisitions here in the city, and that was acquisition of TradeX by a real $6 billion deal. And so to be able to have someone with that caliber on my team, I mean, it is incredible. Like Sig, every room you go in, you say Sig, everybody knows who he is.
Right.
The thing about Sig is that Sig was known for saying no a lot. He still has a fund, and that fund is winding down now. But the one thing that when I asked Sig for coffee, he said yes. When I asked Sig, come, can you help me, mentor me, advise me? He said yes. When I said, Sig, I want to start a fund, he said, it'll be hard, but it's not impossible. And then when I asked him to come on as a venture partner, but Sig had to see something within me, right? I had to go out and do the work. I didn't expect Sig to do the work. And I think that's and plus he wants to make a difference as well, right? He has invested. He did a sort of a synopsis of his portfolio to find out, had he really been effective in diversity? And he had, without even trying. I think he said 16% of his portfolio was diverse. And, for a white man here in Atlanta and, seeing tons of deals, he still was able to make some investments into diverse entrepreneurs. So Sig is just an incredible ally and great for the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, he certainly is. And so on the topic of emerging managers a bit, you said you asked Sid to mentor you. He often says no, but he said yes in this case. So for other emerging managers who are going out to raise their first fund, how important is that aspect of mentorship to helping you get in front of, potential other GPs and LPs, of course, as well?
So I know there are a couple of thoughts about mentorship. Some folks say, especially Black entrepreneurs or even Black GPs, we're over mentored and underfunded. And, how do we get you to get past the mentoring part and write a check, right? But I'm of the mind, like, I didn't know this space. And if I'm going to do this and do it well, I want to bring in the person who's done it already. And I think it's incredibly important that folks find mentors early. Like, as soon as you think you want to go down this road, find someone who's done it before and done it well. And so what Sig did when he became a mentor and advisor, he began to give me credibility. I'm learning under him, and so that helped open other doors for folks who were interested in the fund. And I think, not that we thought of mentorship as like, you got to help me out, Sig, you got to raise the fund for me, that sort of stuff. But it was like having an ally or an advocate who can go in rooms and talk about the fund, at rooms that I'm not in, right? And then be able to get people, bought into the fund. And so Sig has been that. And so if people want to really do this, I say align yourself early with someone that can help you walk you through the process. Sig is one of the more visible mentors and advisors, but I have so many people I call on who've done this before, right? Still to this day, I had a call with, 2 people yesterday. I have a coach that I talked to. All of those people are important in helping me as I, navigate this space that wasn't built for me, right? And so I'm really appreciative of Sig and the others.
Yeah, I think mentorship, I wouldn't be where I am today without mentorship. And I think a lot of the people in this space can say the same, and especially with his experience of working with LPs and helping you navigate those conversations. I'm sure there's been tremendous benefit from that relationship. And so I want to shift the conversation a bit here. And so have you been in Atlanta your entire life, or did you move here at some stage in your life?
So I came here in 2002. So 20 years. I came from Orlando, Florida, where I was born and raised. Loved Florida, but we were looking for something different. And there was always a pull to Atlanta, mainly because of, the Black Mecca sort of moniker that's out there. But we didn't come here thinking that the streets were going to be paved with gold, right? We came here thinking we're going to work our behinds off and we're going to make a great opportunity from living here. And we did. I worked for the American Cancer Society. I worked at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I immediately got plugged into so many aspects of the city. And so now here 20 years later, I'm finally being able to having the ability to sit down with the chamber, having the ability to partner with Invest Atlanta, having all this because of the time that I've been here in Atlanta and the network that I've sort of built up. It has been, I have enjoyed, I feel like this is the best city to live in my opinion. It's still low cost before hopefully prices don't continue to rise, but it's still an affordable city. It's still good quality of living here. And look at what we're doing now in terms of our entrepreneurship ecosystem. It has grown tremendously. And so yeah, I don't know if I'm a native yet, but definitely been here for a long time.
Yeah, I think all the contributions that you have made thus far certainly would put you in a native category, I'd say.
For sure.
That's interesting. And so, what changes, what evolution have you seen since being in Atlanta for over 20 years now? What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen from from the business and maybe tech ecosystem standpoint?
So one of the biggest things, and I wasn't in tech, so I don't really know like 20 years ago what the tech scene was looking like. I know that entrepreneurship has always been huge here, right? People come here really because they feel like they can build something from nothing and that the city will respond in kind in terms of customers and that sort of stuff. But on this side of it, in terms of entrepreneurship, I'm like, just to see what's coming, right? What's already been here and how those companies are growing. You think about Gooder, it's her 5-year anniversary today, right? 5 years ago, I'm sure she was out there struggling and whatever. Now she's like a premier founder for our city, building this awesome company called Gooder.
Yeah.
And then just think within the last 2 years, right? From Topes, $3 billion valuation and all of these other entrepreneurs, Tristan Walker now here. I think this Jewel and Collab and what they're doing over there, Fearless Fund, this is so different than it was when I first started, right? None of these folks existed in any sort of way, like they were young entrepreneurs or whatever, but now they're business owners, limited partners and other funds, and so I think the city is it's just been a tremendous, and I don't think we're anywhere near the precipice yet. Like there's so much more going to happen. I can't remember what was the Biz Journal put out, like with Apple moving here, and then Microsoft setting up Airbnb. People know there's something here. I think we just never had an opportunity for them to trust that we were an ecosystem worth investing in.
Yeah.
But I think we've proven them wrong by now.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the local university talent as well is underpinning a lot of that success. And
Yeah.
doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think investors and entrepreneurs on the ground level like you and I certainly see the impacts that those institutions are having. And you mentioned like Apple's investing here in the Propel Center, which is what we were talking about the other day, and that's a really exciting opportunity that's gonna, I think, change the city.
I think so, and I think it provides an opportunity. You're talking about the students coming, we talked about HBCUs and students on PWIs, primarily white institutions for those who don't know. There is a wealth of talent here, and we've doubled down on that talent by coming up with our own sort of, how do we get engaged with universities in the city to find some of that early talent and then be able to, how do we keep that talent here? Like, what do we have in place as a city that keeps them here? So hearing things like the Propel Center, and then Morehouse has their own innovation center, entrepreneurship center. All of these centers, I believe, will just help bring out, they're just going to spin out talent because folks will now have a place to go to, right? A lot of students, don't want to go to a job. They want to start a company when they finish school, whether it's finish high school, some of them, or finish college. I want us to be the MIT and the Stanfords, where you go to those schools, you're coming out with a business model, and I'm hoping centers like the Propel Center and Morehouse is going to be doing something like that. But there is so much talent. I've met them. I've gone over to UGA. I mentor over at Georgia Tech. I'm always talking to the folks at Morehouse, I want y'all, the talent you all are now working with, to have a place to go once they leave those particular programs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those things are really going to make the city special.
Yeah, I agree. And it's important for the startups and the venture funds here to build a relationship with those institutions as well. I think that's something that's, I think there's a need for more opportunity and just more bridging that gap there. here in the city. So I think, Zane is going to work on that. Valor is going to work on that. Equally, a lot of the funds here as well.
Right, right.
So as you think about like 2022 Atlanta, here we are in February. What are some of the things that most excite you about the ecosystem, whether it's founders, startups, more capital in the region? Like, are there 2 or 3 things that people should really be aware of happening in this ecosystem this year and maybe this decade even?
Sure. So for me, it's the people and the companies, right? So, and I say that because they go hand in hand when you're looking at entrepreneurship, right? So yes, the company is over here. First, we do look at the founder, but the company, when we were talking the other day, there was a guy who just moved to Atlanta and he came here to start, his company is called Real Time. I hope y'all don't mind me mentioning it. And he's going to start with Morehouse and some of the HBCUs with his product. He moved from San Francisco to Atlanta. And so I think we're going to see more of that happening.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I had the opportunity. I talked to Sig about like, how can I go to other cities and recruit them to come to Atlanta? And he's like, well, you have to have a big enough fund to do that. You need at least 100 million. I would love the day that when we're able to, those Black primarily founders who are in such incredibly underfunded regions, be able to have somewhere that they feel is a home for them. I'll give you an example. I went to Oakland, did a founders dinner there, and I was so surprised that, first of all, what it was considered downtown that looked like blight. And I didn't know that there had been some protests there, and so I didn't have that sort of information. But when I met with those entrepreneurs, there is no real source of capital for them. They're building companies. The source of capital is across the bridge in San Francisco. They're not Silicon Valley. I'm sorry, yes, it's Silicon Valley. They are not Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. Where do they have to go? And so I would love, like, we get this continuation of folks to come here to Atlanta and find their place here in the city, find that comfort level and that support that they're looking for. That's what I'm excited about. Like being able to support these entrepreneurs with a 360 approach, right? Meaning like we have mentors for you, we have advisors for you. Okay, we're going to lead the round. I have a couple of funds who are in the city who can help us close this round. That would be awesome, that our founders don't have to go to the West Coast or go to the Northeast. We will keep that talent here. That is what my hope is. So I'm really excited about the people who are here, those who are coming here, and all of the opportunities we have to have an incredible and robust entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Yeah. Thinking about what we talked about the other day and like how Atlanta is the city where you move here and like you get plugged in, right? You get plugged into where the founders hang out, to where the investors are, to where the accelerators are, to who to pitch your company to, and then you making the note about San Francisco and Oakland, how those cities are literally like 10, 15 minutes apart from each other, but there's such division.
Right.
In the sense of, Oakland's so different from San Francisco, but they're right there, the proximity there, but I'm sure there's a huge divide in capital as well that probably doesn't really escape and go to the other side of the bridge,
Right, yeah. So, and then, speaking of the other day, like that was a great example of diversity in our city. Yes, it could have been an all Black dinner the other night, but it was such diversity in the room from the entrepreneur community, and that is Atlanta, and so I think we'll see more, and I also think we're going to see more like those individuals come to Atlanta because they want to build community here. I think that's what we're going to see as well. There is something special here and other folks know it, and so they want to have a place in the city that they can come and call as part of their community too.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. And then kind of transitioning here again, you're an investor and you're evaluating probably hundreds of companies. So I'm curious as to, what 2021 looked like in terms of valuation at the early stage. And then, a month in now to the new year, have you seen those same valuations carry over? Because oftentimes, we hear that people are wanting to raise lots of capital at inflated valuations. And I'm wondering if you think that's going to continue throughout this year.
Well, if I'm paying attention to the markets, I don't think so, right? The markets have not been great of late. And that's been one of the things, always what they call inflated valuations, like where are we gonna see that? And for me, I've talked to a few companies and I'm like, your valuation is what? And I'm priced out because you're above, the range that I said I would invest in. And so I don't want to, because what happens in the market, it affects me too. So I'm hoping things change. But if the market continues the way it is, we're going to have a reckoning around valuations, right? You will see some of these companies who have inflated, like, I don't know what would happen with them, but I don't know if they'll continue to get the type of funding that has been, VC was incredibly busy right at the end of 2021 and came in 2022 blazing, not for everyone, but for those they did. There's been a lot of capital invested in these sort of inflated valuations. And so I just want to see what happens. I don't want to see it. I'm hoping that we still have a great ride in the market, but I just don't know if that's going to be, if that's sustainable or not.
Yeah, I agree. You have to track what the public markets are doing, right? And
right.
I think interest rates are going up in March. Obviously, they were lower to encourage spending and really pump stimulus into the market. But now I think we've hit that inflection point when it comes to fiscal policy. So it'll be interesting to see, what really 2022 shapes up to be in terms of valuation and things like that. So yeah, that's interesting. And so what's on tap for Zane Venture Fund this year? Like, what are some of the things that you're most excited about relative to maybe fundraising or investments or just anything relative to Zane that you are excited about and looking forward to?
Sure. So, it's interesting because Crunchbase sort of confirmed it for me this morning. So one of the things in their report was about upskilling and how VCs have poured billions into upskilling some of these companies that are coming up. And we just made our first investment out of our programming in a company who's focused on upskilling. And so I'm really excited. I'm like, wow, we are right on target. Then I'm glad because that's when we were focused on ed tech, like we were going to go into the ed tech space, and this was fit that. And so I'm incredibly excited about that. I'm also incredible. I've talked to some incredible entrepreneurs building all kind of products, and one thing that I'm like, I can't invest in all of y'all, right? The deal flow that I'm getting is awesome. And how to try to decide, especially with the 5 investments we've made, and those companies are now scaling and they require follow-on funding. So it's a toy between, do I make this next investment or do I support my company? We have to support our portfolio. And so for me, still fundraising and hoping I can get to my target, because I'm missing so many opportunities of potential deals I really like, and they meet our certain criteria, and so I'm excited about closing my fund at the target that I set out for. Whether that's going to happen or not, the market will tell that. LPs who are also backing away from new fund managers will tell that. But I will still go out looking for good deals. I'll still support the ecosystem as much as I can. But I'm excited about a lot of these new companies that are coming up, founded by diverse entrepreneurs. Who have found a problem and felt like they had the ability to solve it,
Yeah, I agree. And, you all solely are not focused on Atlanta, but rather just the Southeast as a region. And so, for us, we've seen a lot of interesting companies coming out of Raleigh and Nashville as well, whether they're in the health tech or biotech space. So I'm curious, do you see any other cities here in the region that are really burgeoning and popping up and coming up with some cool companies emerging?
So everybody talks about Miami, right? And there's so much talent down there in Miami from both the Black and Latinx entrepreneurs. I don't think the Black entrepreneurs get access to the capital at the same level, but that's a whole other story. But definitely a burgeoning Tampa. I'm headed to Tampa next week, right? There's been a lot of movement there. I even saw at Black Orlando Tech, and I'm originally from Orlando, and I'm like, I gotta go there and see what's happening there. Yeah. And so there are pockets of cities. Birmingham has been doing incredibly well. One of my LPs is from Birmingham. I had never heard of him before, but they have a pretty burgeoning ecosystem there, and so definitely want to see what's happening there. someone told me about, they didn't give me, I think it's Jackson, Mississippi.
Hmm.
And I'm going, first of all, is there activity in Mississippi at all? And they were like, there is so much happening in Jackson, Mississippi.
Hmm.
I don't know what types of companies are spinning out of those particular cities. I don't think they have like a focus of, SaaS or anything like that, or health, like as in Nashville. But they're having a lot of activity. And part of our work is I would be able to tap into all of these different ecosystems and see how we can play a part and let folks know, hey, we're here to kind of help support the entire region.
Yeah.
But there's so much happening here.
Interesting. Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi.
I'll admit that one was not on my radar, but I think it may be now after this conversation.
Yeah. I think the woman who was one of Jewel Burks Solomon's CTO, I can't remember her name, she's a PhD, I believe. She's doing something there as well. And so I just was shocked, and I'm like, that's a region I would love to help out. To be able to spur entrepreneurship, right? And somewhere like that. I think Mississippi is one of our poorest states in the country. So to be able to do something there that can kind of spur, some innovation would be awesome.
Yeah, thinking about that lower Gulf region, New Orleans has a lot of stuff that's popping up as well. Equally, like you said, Birmingham, I know I went to the Innovation Depot out there, and they've got some great companies. In the pre-seed and seed accelerators there. So like you said, I think the ecosystem is just due for like an amassing of talent and strong companies coming out. So I'm excited, Shila. And I think go ahead.
I'm gonna say, but here's our mismatch, William. We have all of that, and the mismatch is the capital, right? And so that's part of our thesis as well. Like, how do we figure out this mismatch, right? All this great talent. We're the most underfunded region. How do we bring capital to match the amount of talent so we don't lose the talent that's in the region, right? Yeah,
we recently wrote a blog post on that, just talking about, while there is an increase in capital, the allocation, the percentage of total capital coming to this region has remained relatively flat ever since the, can you hear me, Shila?
Okay.
But Shila, I think this was a very strong conversation, and I think our listeners will, one, learn a lot about Zane, two, about your passion, your thesis, and how you're continuing to really pay it forward for this ecosystem here in the region. So I'm excited and really appreciate you jumping on the podcast with me today.
Sure, I'm excited as well, and I look forward to working when we make a deal together, Valor and Zane. So I wish you guys all the best, and really good talking to you, William.
Likewise, take care.
All right, thank you.